Good morning, welcome. Welcome everyone. We have interpretation partners here with us today. I will let them introduce themselves.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Astrid Arroyave, and I am with Community Language Cooperative. We are opening up spaces so we can talk in what we call the language of our hearts, which means the language in which we can communicate the best. We are going to do it through simultaneous interpretation. I would like to share with everyone some guidelines in order to support this simultaneous interpretation. Let's remember that Spanish is 25% more extensive than English. So let's please talk at a conversational pace, a comfortable pace. So interpreter can bring out your full message. Also, if the interpreter brings out the image and does this sign, it means that it's asking you to please elongate what you are saying and slow down. If that's this sign, it's telling you that sound is not good enough for interpretation. And with this sign, it's asking you to please talk one person at the time. At the end of this short interpretation that is going to be repeated in Spanish as well, and once the interpretation function is turned on, you are going to see the globe icon at the bottom of your screen. Click on it. In it, you will be able to select your channel, English or Spanish. You also have the option of muting the original audio so you don't have to deal with two languages going on at the same time. And also, when you are not talking, please mute your mics. Muy buenos días, mi nombre es Astrid Arroyave. Estoy aquí con la Cooperativa Comunitaria del Lenguaje y estamos abriendo espacios para que todos podamos expresarnos en lo que llamamos el idioma de nuestro corazón, es decir, en el que nos podemos comunicar más fácilmente. Lo haremos a través de la interpretación simultánea. Me gustaría compartir con todos unas pautas básicas para poder apoyar la interpretación simultánea. Recordemos que el español es 25% más extenso que el inglés. Así que hablemos a un ritmo cómodo, conversacional, aún en español también. Si la intérprete trae su imagen y hace este símbolo, está indicando que por favor alarguen lo que están diciendo y vayan más despacio. Si hace este símbolo, está indicando que no puede escuchar suficientemente bien para realizar la interpretación. Y si hace este símbolo, está diciendo que hable por favor una persona a la vez. Muy bien, también tenemos la opción de silenciar el audio original para no tener que escuchar dos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Pero antes debía haber dicho, al final de esta pequeña introducción y una vez se encienda la función de interpretación, van a encontrar en la parte de abajo de sus pantallas el icono del globo terráqueo. Háganle clic ahí. Allí van a poder escoger el canal de su preferencia, inglés o español. Ahí sí, entonces también pueden apagar es el audio original para que no tenga que escuchar dos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Perfecto. Y cuando no se esté hablando, por favor, hay que silenciar el micrófono. One last recommendation, if there are here some dear panelists who are bilingual, please refrain from using Spanglish or going from one language to the other too quickly, because there is a little delay in the interpretation function, and this would be extremely hard to manage doing simultaneous interpretation in Zoom. Y para finalizar, si hay aquí algunos estimados panelistas que son bilingües, por favor les recomiendo que no se abstengan de hacer el uso del Spanglish o de ir de un idioma a otro muy rápidamente, debido a que este sistema tiene un pequeño retraso y es sumamente difícil hacer la interpretación simultánea en Zoom cuando esto se presenta. Ya podemos, muchísimas gracias a todos y ya podemos encender la interpretación. Thank you so much, and we can turn on interpretation now. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. My name is Rachel Flank-Goldberg. I am DHS's Grants Impact Manager. My pronouns are she, her. I also have a colleague on the call with me today, and I will let her introduce herself as well.
Hey everyone, good morning. My name is Esther Rivera and I'm the Grants and Community Liaison for the Human Together grant. Thanks to see everyone.
So some housekeeping before we get started. This session is being recorded. It will be posted on our website after today's session. We will also be sending it out via email for those of you that were registered. We are also going to be sending out the slide that we're showing now. There are some links in it that would be more helpful to receive via email. So we'll do that after the session today. When we do open it up for questions, feel free to take yourself off mute, put your question in the chat, which either you prefer. I anticipate that we will be able to get to everyone's question. However, if we don't, or if you think of a question after today's session, please feel free to email and reach out to Esther or myself. We will put our emails in the chat. They're also on the grant application, but we're here to support you in this process. So please let us know if there's anything we can help clarify. And with that, this slide does have some important dates for you all just to keep in your mind. The application is now open and it will be closing on Thursday, March 24th at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Any application that comes in after that time or date will not be considered for this funding opportunity. So please do make sure you get it in on time. The term for this award is going to be June 6th through December 31st, 2022. So through the end of the year. And we would expect all activities and funds to be spent during that term period. Same as last year, the maximum award for organizations is $10,000. To be eligible for this funding opportunity, you need to be a 501c3 within the city and county of Denver, or be working with a fiscal sponsor to apply for the funds. Organizations need to be in good standing with the state of Colorado, and they need to serve a majority of Denver residents. And then finally, we are really looking to partner with small-scale grassroots organizations. And so operating budgets for organizations need to be under $1 million. And with that, I will turn it over to all of you. So please feel free to come off mute or put a question in the chat and we can get started. And I have a lot of social worker colleagues, and so they've taught me that we can sit in silence. So we can also sit in silence if you're coming up with your questions.
Hi, Rachel. This is Lisa with Foster Source, and I have a question. You stated that we needed to be a 501c3 registered in Denver. So we are registered with the state, but we serve residents in Denver, and any grant we would apply for would absolutely just be directly focused on the services that our Denver residents receive. Does that make us still eligible?
No, unfortunately not for this funding opportunity. We are supporting organizations that are physically resided in the city and county of Denver.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see a question in the chat about the focus areas. So I'm happy to touch on those. So our focus areas were developed in partnership with our strategic planning team, as well as our executive leadership. All of our funding priorities are also tied to city council and mayoral funding priorities. So just a review of what those are, and thank you, Esther, for putting those in the chat. The first one is youth. So youth and young adult social and emotional supports, focused on youth resiliency, youth violence prevention. The second is resilient communities. So community-based behavioral health supports to increase access for health, safety, and resiliency in Denver residents. This funding opportunity, or this funding focus area, may support behavioral health projects such as those that increase access to culturally attuned providers and services, implement or expand no-cost client services, identify innovative and promising practices to community-based behavioral health, or reduce barriers or stigma in receiving services. And again, those are just examples. So I know that there are so many community partners that are being innovative and creative in this space. And so I'm sure that there are other things that folks could apply under this funding priority. The next one is COVID-19 disparities. So these are targeted services and supports for individuals disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, to include Black, Indigenous, people of color, working or pre-pandemic working caregivers that left the workforce to provide care or education supports for their families or community, and then vulnerable and unique populations. Finally, the final funding priority is equity and access in the workplace. So this is community organization capacity building. This funding priority supports community organizations and will facilitate the development or expansion of equitable systems and increase access to opportunities for marginalized populations. Again, these are just examples of activities. Examples of activities could include strategically addressing internal diversity and inclusion efforts, reducing the digital divide for staff and clients, employee trainings such as trauma-informed care or equity, diversity, and inclusion training, and then finally, language equity, either for your staff or for your clients. And again, those are just examples. Did that get to your question, Diane, or do you have a more specific question on the funding priorities?
No, I think that, well, I do have one question on the youth and youth resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Is it required that have a focus on violence prevention, or could it be other types of social and emotional learning support?
It can be other types of social and emotional supports.
Great.
I think the case can be made that most social and emotional supports on youth can be tied back to youth resiliency, but again, it doesn't have to be explicitly stated in that way.
Great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Rachel, we had a question just right before Diane's, how can the grants be used? James Thomas, and I'm wondering if some of the examples Rachel gave might have addressed your question. If not, please come off mute and we can further discuss.
Yes, thank you very much for touching into that. It did answer my questions. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great.
And then we also had a question from the Spanish interpretation side, and it, I believe, asked the same question Diane did around the focus areas. So Astrid, if there's a way you can make sure that question was answered for Diana.
I do see another question in the chat about general operating activities. So we are looking to support specific projects or expansion of current work. An application just for operating support probably wouldn't be funded, but it's not ineligible. We're really looking, also to target our DHS index neighborhoods. So if you are a nonprofit that is specifically working with one of those neighborhoods, potentially that could lend itself to a generic operating activities. But again, we're really looking to support our funding priorities and then also our DHS index neighborhoods. I see a question about if an organization is in Aurora City but serves Denver residents, is that eligible? Unfortunately, not for this funding priority. Organizations need to be physically located within the city and county of Denver, and that is verified by confirmation of being in good standing. That address that is listed with the state is the address that we will go off of to ensure that organizations are located within the city and county of Denver. I believe our interpreter has a question. Astrid, do you have a question? Or I see your hand up.
I just need to move her into the English so we can actually speak to her. Give me one second.
Sure. So we will pause for a minute.
¿Me pueden
Yes, Astrid, are you there? Did you have a question for Rachel?
I don't think we're able to hear you, Astrid.
¿Puede alguien indicarle que por favor se ponga en el canal de inglés? Tell Rachel to choose the English channel so she can hear me. No?
Yes, I will tell her to put up the English channel.
Yeah, okay, yes. So the question is, somebody has asked me before to explain something to a Spanish speaker in the audience. What I'm doing is saying everything Rich.
Question in the English channel, David.
David, can you hear me or somebody?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Astrid.
okay. So the question that what I want to say is, I am explaining as the panelists are talking. So for that person that didn't an explanation, just please choose the Spanish channel and we'll hear all the explanations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I will move on to Lily's question in the chat.
Rachel,
Oh,
I can answer the question we had previously.
Sure.
And that is that our interpreter has, I guess we have some people who came in late. They just need to know to go to the Spanish option on the little world icon at the bottom, if you just kind of talk to them about that.
Yes. So if you joined us late, we do have Spanish interpretation. There is an image of a globe at the bottom of the screen. And if you click on that, it will enable you to choose which breakout room you'd like to be in. And we do have an interpreter in there in Spanish. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. So what will reporting look like if we do receive the grant? Thank you, great question. We will have a midterm report, and then we will have a final report. Both will be web-based, like the application. The midterm report will be due on Monday, October 3rd, and the final report will be due in January of 2023, January 9th. And the reports are really to gain insight into how spending is going. Do you have questions or concerns? Is there anything that we can help support you in this project? We are also really looking at storytelling. So how are we not only making an impact in the community, but how are we sharing that story with our city partners, with funders? So the midterm report is very narrative based. It is not very long. And then the final report will connect with, have you achieved the goals and the outcomes that you have set out in your application? Lily, if you have any additional questions on that, on those reports, please let me know. It's important to note that the first payment will go out when the award is issued. So we'll go out at the beginning of the term. The second half of the award will go out after the midterm report is received and reviewed by our staff. Angela says, can you talk more about the expectation for having cybersecurity? So this is particularly important if your organization has client level information. I would say it's very important even if you're not applying to this grant. But cybersecurity helps your organization if there's any cyber attack and the client level information that you have becomes public. So again, if you are not maintaining client level information, so you're not maintaining names, addresses, dates of birth, email address, if you are not maintaining that, you probably, you know, I'm not an insurance expert, so I can't advise you. That might not be necessary though. But if you are maintaining client level information, that is probably in your best interest to do that. But again, I am not an expert, so I'm not able to give guidance on specific insurances that your nonprofit should have.
Rachel, we do have someone, Nathaniel, that wants to come off mute and have a question.
Sure.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi, Nathaniel.
Okay, my shaky. So first, I just want to say that I'm very impressed with how wide of a spectrum this grant covers. But here are some of my questions. What are some of the more successful proposals that your organization is most proud of that will kind of give me a guiding strategy? And if you have any examples, and then what's the budget for this effort? And then finally, so it's a three-part, what are some of the communities that you're considered target areas?
Yes, thank you for those questions. So Esther, are you able to put into the chat a link to our 2021 impact summary? I think that will be very informative to you, Nathaniel. So that is a summary of all of our awardees in 2021. And what I'm most proud of is how diverse those organizations were. In terms of being successful in your application, I would just be very cognizant that you're tying your application to a funding priority. It doesn't need to, apply to all of them, but at least one. We are going to be awarding bonus points in the review process for organizations that are supporting our Dhs Index neighborhoods. And I'm happy to label or call out those index neighborhoods for you. Let me pull them up so I don't misspeak. So if you're not familiar with our Dhs Index, and we can also share a link to that as well, it is an aggregate map of 16 characteristics from data pulled from the census. It focuses on, eligible but not enrolled in SNAP, early childhood enrollment in preschool. It looks at income levels, and like I said, it's 16 characteristics. And so the neighborhoods that we are focusing on for strategic investment are Athmar Park, Barnum, Clayton, College View, Elaria Swansea, Globeville, Kennedy, Montbello, Ruby Hill, Sun Valley, Valverde, or Valverde, Villa Park, Westwood, and Windsor. So, and again, we did award funding last year to organizations that weren't specifically targeting those neighborhoods, but 89% of the organizations we awarded were targeting those neighborhoods. And so that definitely is a bonus if you are directing services and supports to one of those neighborhoods. And then I'm sorry if I missed part of your question.
About the budget, did you mean overall budget or per each award?
Overall, it kind of gave me a sense of how competitive this process will be.
Yes, great question. So this year we have $400,000 and awards can be up to $10,000. So it will roughly have 40 organizations, give or take. Last year we had $360,000. So we have an increase this year. But with $360,000, we were able to award 37 because not everyone applied for the full $10,000.
Excellent. I really appreciate that.
Of course. And thank you, Nathaniel, for having us highlight the 2021 impact summary. We are so proud of the work that our community partners are doing every day. And it has been a pleasure to us to highlight all 37 of those organizations. So I would really encourage you all to check that out. You will get some sense of what we're talking about in terms of storytelling. We're really looking to communicate and share and elevate the good work that you all are doing every day. I see a question in the chat. How many applications did we receive last year? Last year, we received 137 applications and we were able to award 37. Just seeing if there's any other questions I might have missed in the chat. Hi, Katie. Thank you for your question. If you did receive funding last year, you are able to reapply. Yes. Again, feel free to, put a question in the chat or come off mute. Or, if something comes to you after today's session, Esther and I are more than happy to connect via email and help answer that question for you. I see that Esther also put a link in the chat to our some awardee videos. We have an amazing videographer on staff that also helps us communicate the story. And so do check that out as well. We see that storytelling as another way to not only bring awareness to the work that you all are doing, but to also, hopefully allow you to leverage this funding opportunity for alternative funding, for additional funding down the road. A couple of our awardees from 2021 were able to do pilot projects. And through that work, they were able to prove proof of concept and then we're able to secure larger awards from either the private sector or from a larger scale city grant program. Hi, I see a question in the chat saying, does this grant fund events? So I think if that is part of a larger goal or a larger, strategic initiative, events are certainly eligible to be funded. So I would really just encourage you to tie that back to our funding priorities and clearly state in your application what are the goals that you're hoping to achieve from those events. Hi, Diane. So in terms of capital expenses, this fund does not fund capital improvements or capital expenses. And I assume by that you mean like major renovation projects, but if there's something else that you're referring to, please let me know.
No, I was referring to renovation projects to expand one of our programs, but it would be capital, so that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel, did you receive any questions that maybe we can talk about here? I know one question that I got was around the organizational budget, and that is capped at $1 million for all the award or for all the applicants. Sorry, so I don't know if you got any others.
I got a very specific question from one organization, but yes, as Esther pointed out for us, operating budgets for organizations do need to be under $1 million. And that is specific so that we can partner with small scale community organizations that perhaps we haven't partnered with in the past. And so we're really looking to connect with organizations that are valued members of the community, that are close to community, and we're looking to support organizations that might not have had an opportunity to contract with the city before. Through this funding opportunity, we will not be issuing contracts. Payments will be issued via purchase order. But potentially if this is their first interaction or first partnership with the city, this can be used as a springboard to build capacity internally and then go after larger scale contracts with the city or larger scale grant funding opportunities with the city. Sure, Nathaniel, we'll be happy to put a link in the chat to the application. It is located on our website. It is web-based. It's similar to a Google form, but the platform is called Open Forms. And that is the same platform we will use for the midterm and final reports. I have found it, and our awardees from 2021 have found it pretty user-friendly. But again, if you have any questions or concerns with the application, please reach out and let us know how we can help troubleshoot. I would encourage you to get your application in, I like at least a day ahead of time. I submit applications on behalf of the city, and I like to do a couple of days ahead of time just in case I get into any hiccups with the internet or what have you. But I'm hopeful that this will be a pretty easy process for you. But again, let us know if you have any questions about the format. And two, when you submit your application, you should receive a confirmation email. So again, that's another good indication that it was submitted correctly. And just another, if you don't get one, feel free to reach out and we can help troubleshoot on that as well. But again, if you're able to submit your application ahead of time, we'll be able to attend to those troubleshooting issues more easily than if it's at 4:55 on the 24th.
Rachel, we have a question. I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Bathsheba, can we speak to someone if we are unsure what strategic initiative our application should fit under? So I don't know if you want to come off of mute and ask your question.
Sure. So we fit under just the generic description of multiple strategic initiatives for this particular grant, and I'm having kind of a hard time deciding. I think the application only asked for one category. So if we could sit down, is there an opportunity to sit with someone to kind of talk about the proposal itself to narrow down the scope or which strategic initiative is best? Or if we pick one and it's under multiple, that the panel would be able to discern that. I'm not sure how the decision-making process is.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we ask that your application aligns with at least one of the funding priorities. So if it's more than one, that's completely fine. And you can check off more than one. We don't have caps on, I'm just going to throw out numbers, but 10 youth applications, 10 resilient communities, 10 COVID-19 disparities. We're really, when we score the applications, it's going to just be on the content and the quality of the project that's proposed. And so I wouldn't let it dissuade you if you can't decide if it's one or the other. I would just encourage you to check off both. But if you do have questions and you'd like us to answer it specifically for your applications, we're happy to do that too. And feel free to email us and reach out. You're welcome.
There's another question, James Thomas. Will there be a grant through your organization that Aurora can use?
So not all funding opportunities by the City and County of Denver have the residency requirement that ours does. Different funding opportunities have different requirements. So I would encourage you to continue to stay connected with DHS to learn about those. I personally don't know of funding opportunities in Aurora because these funds are from the City and County of Denver General Fund. That is why we are looking to support organizations within the City and County of Denver and also City and County of Denver residents. But unfortunately, James, I can't speak to opportunities that might be there for Aurora. So I see there's a question up from Nikki about operating budget. So when you supply verification of your operating budget, whatever that is, we're going to go off of. So if it's over $1 million, we're not going to move forward that application. But I understand that you can be kind of wavering around that mark. So, I mean, we are looking to support organizations that are under $1 million. And so if you are over $1 million, congratulations to your organization for continuing to grow. And again, this is a requirement of this funding opportunity, but is not a requirement of every opportunity that DHS puts forth. And so please do stay connected to DHS and learn about other opportunities. In addition to DHS, the Office of Children's Affairs and the Office of Public Health and Environment also put out granting opportunities. And so staying connected to the city in general will be helpful. Your message in the chat about the reports, I'm glad you find them helpful. We have been trying to put those out in community just to continue to share and build awareness for the good work that small mom and pop organizations are doing in Denver. We acknowledge that sometimes organizations that are small scale might be overlooked, and we're really looking to partner with those kind of organizations to get connected to not only organizations that we haven't worked with in the past, but also reach clients that we haven't been able to connect with in the past. And we also see this funding opportunity as a way to share all of the supports and services that DHS as an agency is able to provide for the community. David, there's a question in the chat about that perhaps you're able to answer.
The link for the entire meeting in the chat room.
Yes, I think so.
We will be creating this as one video, and we'll be putting that on our website. So I do not have the link yet. That might be something we could email out as well.
Great, thank you, David. Esther, are you able to put in the chat our BidNet? Already on it. Thank you. So BidNet is what the city and county uses for our large scale RFPs. We grant staff are advocating for one unified place for all community giving opportunities, and we're just working out those details citywide. But I will let you know, so DHS has a community giving program, this one. Office of Children's Affairs has community giving. DDPHE, so that's the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment, has a Healthy Food for Kids initiative. And we can certainly put in links in the chat to those organizations, to the agency's websites to look there. But Nikki, I'm personally advocating for a citywide system so that we can have all the city funding opportunities in one place, because I know that that would be very beneficial to our community partners. Yes. Yes, I see a question about uploading a receipt of the completed Executive Order 101. Yes, please do upload a copy or confirmation of your completed and submitted Executive Order 101 form. And Esther, thank you for pointing out, BidNet does ask that you create an account, but it is free. And when you do create an account, you can also be alerted to specific funding opportunities based on your preferences. So could be anything human services related, or if it's specifically you want to receive notices about youth programs or SNAP or TANF programs, you can set it up to your preference. Thank you, Esther, for putting in the chat a link to our community connections. Community connections is a way for community-based organizations to share information with each other. And so it is like the dashboard is operated by DHS, but DHS doesn't funnel the information. So if you have programs or services that you're looking to share with another nonprofit, another community partner in Denver, we encourage you to utilize that community connections.
I think I've seen some foundations send out, grant opportunities that they have there, as well as other agencies. So it's just, resource sharing and grants as well, news, things like that.
The other thing I can point out is, although the term is June 6th through December 31st, the scope of your project doesn't have to extend that whole time. For instance, we partnered with several organizations last year that were focused on youth community programming that was only happening during the summer months, and that's completely fine as well. We understand the midterm report due date is a little off kilter if your event is only in the summer, but that doesn't disqualify your organization for applying. It can be a summer focused project or program, again, or if it's a early fall focus, that's completely fine too. The project doesn't have to extend the full term, but we do ask that all services and funds are utilized within the term of the grant. I think Nathaniel asked earlier about how to make sure that you have a successful application. And so in addition to tying it to a funding priority, I would also encourage you to take specific notice to your budget and a budget narrative, which is just an explanation of how you will spend the funds. Because these are city and county dollars, we want to make sure that they are spent appropriately and are spent how you intended to. And so as much information as you can put in a budget is appreciated for the reviewers. So for instance, if you are requesting money for food, perhaps it's a food access programming, instead of just labeling the budget line food and having $1 amount, it's helpful if you can state this will increase access to fresh produce, which is, costs X amount. Just the more information you put in the budget, the better. Just helps us really connect the narrative, the project that you're proposing, to how the funds will be spent.
Hey, thanks for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm. Also, if any folks have questions more about the funding priorities and want to, ask specific questions of, do you think this would align? I'm happy to do that as well. In terms of equity and access in the workplace, last year we funded several applications that were focused internally. So one nonprofit hired an equity and diversity and inclusion consultant to help train their staff and align their programs and services to be more equitable. Another organization utilized funding to purchase computers for their staff to be able to work remotely. That was, particularly important last year during the pandemic. And other in equity and access, we also funded digital divide opportunities. So getting tablets and computers out to clients so that they could be connected either to their work or for youth to be connected to schooling. But again, if anyone has questions on, or wants to chat about if something would connect with a funding opportunity, I'm happy to engage in that conversation. You can use the grant for what we call office supplies. Computer technology, as long as that cost is under $5,000, it's considered an office supplies. So computers, yes, would be eligible. Tablets. If you are looking to purchase some sort of, machinery, that would not be eligible. But if it's computer technology, yep, camera equipment, definitely eligible. We supported an organization last year that was focused on storytelling and having residents expand the ability to do their own podcast and journalism. And so they purchased recording equipment and cameras that was then residents were able to kind of like check out on loan. So yes, camera equipment is eligible.
Did you mention also software, Rachel? We had a couple that did.
Yes, software would be eligible. We did have a partner who purchased, I believe it was like donor relations management software so that they could track all their incoming donations. So definitely able, wanting to support organizations in that capacity. If you have specific questions on software, please let us know, but in general, that is allowable. Another thing that's allowable under this grant and that we encourage are scholarships or free access to your program. So it's not allowable to charge, to utilize our funding and then charge participants a fee to participate. However, if your regular business model is to charge for a fee and then you wanted to utilize this funding to allow participants to engage free of charge, that would be allowable. So like a scholarship model is allowable under these funds. Musical instruments would be great. Yes, that would be an allowable expense. And we did partner with a youth serving orchestra last year. And yes, so that would be an allowable activity.
Bathsheba has her hand up.
Sure.
Hi, again. So just a quick question on allowable expenses. We have several events coming up, and one of the things that we would like to do is to involve community members in learning dances and musical pieces, and also being able to perform. But we also recognize that this might be a little bit out of the scope for some people to be able to commit their time freely to do this. We want to be able to provide the participants with some sort of stipend to offset their time, or to at least honor their time for participating and performing. Is that something that could be considered under this funding opportunity?
Yes, you can offer stipends or incentives to participate. You can also, if you want to utilize it for staff time, that's fine as well. But yes, that would be allowable.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, I just dropped in the list of attachments, just to point out that they are separate attachments for the application. So there should be enough room within the application for you to upload each one of these. So if you have any questions around the W-9, what we mean about the verification for Executive Order 101, your certificate of good standing, or the verification of organizational budget, we can clarify any questions around that.
Thank you, Esther, for including that. Yes, we do need a W-9 for every organization. That is so that we can pay you, get to your award. The verification of Executive Order 101 applies to any funded opportunity contract. This is not a contract grant, but it applies to funding opportunities and organizations that are partnering with the city to ensure that your organization is also has an importance and on diversity and inclusion with your programs and services. Being verification of good standing with the state of Colorado, please do attach that. That can be found on the state of Colorado website. We can verify that, but it is a mandatory attachment to please include with your application. And then also verification of your organization's operating budget. I see another question from Diane. So Diane, what I meant by up to $5,000 is that, or yeah, $5,000 in the grant world, any, we might call it equipment, you know, a computer, but in grant terminology, anything like a computer that is under $5,000 is considered an office supplies. When you get into larger scale RFPs and grant budgets, any equipment is anything $5,000 and over. So if you were purchasing like an industrial printer or something of that nature. But yes, you are correct. Anything, you know, computers, cameras, software, either for staff or clients is allowable. Feel free to come off mute if you have any questions.
I'm sorry, I had one more question about
Sure.
verification of organizational annual operating budget. What is considered acceptable to provide verification? Is it an income and expenses report from our CPA or the taxes that we filed? I'm not clear on what we should provide. Yeah,
we're flexible on what verification you'd like to attach, but either of those that you've mentioned, either an expense and income report, that's a fine verification. Or it's, tax return, that's fine as well. So whatever is easier for you to include.
Okay, so last year's budget or last year's taxes would be
that's fine.
Acceptable. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I can talk a little bit more about our process too, if that would be helpful after, awards are made. Esther and I will be setting up a meet and greet. We'll see if those have to happen virtually or if they can happen in person. Obviously be, following the up-to-date health advisory, but we'd like to meet with every organization, put a face to a name. And then we'll just, talk through any questions you might have for getting started on the project. We'll make sure that we have all the documents needed to issue that first payment. And then we will also connect with setting up a site visit. that is really just so we can see the work in action. We love to come out into community and be able to get a better sense of the work that's going on. We didn't go out to every single organization last year, and that was just due to COVID. Some organizations' projects didn't really lend themselves to visitors, and that's completely understandable and fine. But where possible, we'd love to, you know, come out, meet you, meet your staff, potentially maybe meet community members that you're supporting, but just again, to get a better sense of the work in community and a way to build relationships. So another aspect of this program is that we're able to support all of our awardees in partnership building across the city. We had several awardees build new partnerships and new collaborations out of this funding opportunity. And so in any way that we can help foster that through our partners, we want to be that connector as well. You're welcome, Katie. Yep, thank you guys for being here. I know you all are busy, so I appreciate your time. And again, if any questions come to you after this session, please just feel free to reach out. We're here to support and make this process for applying as streamlined as possible. So if there's any hiccups that we can help mitigate, please let us know. Thank you, Esther, for putting in the chat, excuse me, the link to the state of Colorado being in good standing. That is how you can obtain that verification. You can either, you know, take a screenshot or a printout and then use that as an attachment. You're welcome to everyone saying thank you. And I really honestly thank all the organizations that we've partnered with. Last year was our first opportunity to put these grants out in community. And it was very exciting for us to be able to get this off the ground and partner. And so we're glad here to be back on year 2. And because of all the good work that organizations did and the ability for us to story tell, we have increased the amount of funding we have this year. So again, I mentioned this year we have $400,000. Last year we had 360. So we're going to be able to support more organizations through this funding opportunity, which is also very exciting for us. Sure, about the, are you looking to hear more about the review process or the process for getting funds out the door? The review, sure, I'm happy to speak to that. So when the applications come in, all the applications that are submitted on time will go through a technical review. We will be looking to make sure all the attachments are included, that the organization is residing within the city and county of Denver. The organization is within good standing with the state of Colorado, that there is an operating budget under $1 million. And after that technical review, organizations that pass that will go on to a staff review committee. The applications will be scored on the narrative portion as well as on the budget. And then final consideration will be going to our DHS Human Services Board. And when the board looks at applications, they will be looking at alignment to our DHS mission, which we can put in the chat, as well as our strategic plan. All of the funding priorities do support our strategic plan, but it is important to our board as well as our executive management that organizations are really helping DHS move forward that progress. And so we can put in a link, a copy to our new strategic plan that was released last week. It's called Human Together, and that is where the grant also gets its name. And then, yes, so applications will have a technical review, a review by an internal panel of staff. And those staff are from a variety of service areas in the agency. And then final review and recommendation will come from our DHS Board of Human Services. You're welcome.
I think, Rachel, you mentioned earlier about the additional points for organizations that identify a specific DHS index neighborhood where the challenges might be more significant for those communities. So if you're calling that out specifically, you will get additional points as part of the technical review.
Yes, thank you, Esther. So yeah, there's an opportunity in the application to indicate the neighborhoods your project program are looking to serve. And so if that is a DHS index neighborhood, additional points will be awarded for supporting those. And like I said earlier, but happy to point out again, 89% of awardees last year in 2021 were serving DHS index neighborhoods. So it's not that you have to, but we are really looking to target supports and services in those neighborhoods. So it is a bonus if that's where your programming will be taking place. And thank you, Esther, for including the neighborhoods in the chat again. Just making sure I didn't miss anything in the chat. Please note too that when we send out the recording after the meeting, it will also have transcription with it. But if there are any, additional questions on interpretation or something wasn't as accessible as it could be, please let us know. We are constantly looking to improve our language equity, and so we welcome that feedback. So please do share that with us if there's anything that we could improve in the future. I guess the other thing that I'll mention is that throughout the grant term, if there's any supports and services that Esther and I can help bring to your organization that DHS offers, please let us know. We want to be that connector. So for instance, DHS has fatherhood programs And so if your organizations could benefit from learning more about that, if enrolling for SNAP or Medicaid would benefit the residents that you're supporting. We not only want to be, a connector of getting funds in community, but also to the array of services and supports that DHS offers. So that will also go into our meet and greet meeting is, is there anything else that we can help support your clients? Or is there any additional information that we can help provide? Can we put a face to a name for programming? Just let us know how we can best support you and your clients or community members in that way. I see, David, thank you. We're down to 10 people on the call. I appreciate everyone who's stuck on the majority of the time. Again, I'm happy to stay on and continue answering questions or just talk to myself, but if there are any additional questions, let me know and let us know how we can best support. You're welcome, Catherine. You're welcome, Angela. Yes, you're welcome. I'm glad this was helpful. Again, too, any feedback on this session today is also very helpful. Particularly, this time seemed to work for most folks last year, so we went with the lunch hour. If you have feedback on another time that would be better served, please let us know. We're always looking to improve our programming. And so definitely open to any feedback that you might have. I'll just take an opportunity now to also thank David Palmer. He is helping us in the background and he's making it possible for us to have this session today. Thank you, David, for all the logistical support.
No problem. Happy to help.
Mm-hmm. It looks like all or most folks are off, but I think we can go ahead and we can end the call since most folks are off. I don't think any additional questions are coming in. But again, if there is anything else, please let us know.
Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Really helpful. So I look forward to working with you in the future.
Great. Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. And I hope we were able to get the answers to your questions.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you as well.
Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Mhm.